Stop buying two different shotguns just because the old guard tells you a duck gun cannot clear a hallway. 99% of guys still think they need a 30-inch barrel for the marsh and a dedicated short barrel pump for the nightstand, and it is costing them a small fortune. The concept of the single-purpose shotgun is officially dead. At SHOT Show 2026, the industry finally woke up and started building true crossover platforms. We are talking about rigs that can survive a freezing saltwater blind at dawn, then run high-brass defensive buckshot through a red dot sight at midnight without a single hiccup. Look, I have been tearing apart the spec sheets, ignoring the marketing hype on the show floor, and looking for the actual deal breakers. What we have here are the top 5 semi-auto shotguns that truly bridge the gap between hunting and home defense. Kicking off the countdown at number 5 is the Beretta A300 Ultima Patrol in 20 gauge. Now, I know the old school operators think anything less than a 12 gauge is a toy, but with the rise of tungsten supershot, the ballistic calculus has shifted. This rig slings 20 gauge downrange with enough terminal performance to anchor a gobbler at 50 yards or neutralize a threat in your hallway without the bruising recoil of a 12 gauge Magnum. It weighs in right around 6 pounds, making it a featherweight champion for anyone navigating a cramped space under stress. Under the hood, this Italian machine runs on Beretta's proven gas-operated mechanism. Instead of letting your shoulder eat all that kinetic energy, the system bleeds off expanding high-pressure gases from the barrel and stretches the recoil impulse over a longer time curve. The result is a gun that kicks like a polite tap on the shoulder. Even with 3-inch defensive loads, I saw a guy at the range hand one of these to his 90-pound wife, and she ran a full tube flat out without flinching. Plus, the trigger breaks like snapping a crisp carrot, keeping you dead on target for those violently fast follow-up shots. Looking at the geometry, it sports a 19.1-inch barrel and holds 7+1 in the extended tube. The controls are massively enlarged. In featuring a knurled bolt handle and a reversible crossbolt safety, you can run easily with heavy winter gloves. The forend even packs integrated M-lock slots and a 7-slot Picatinny rail right out of the box for your lights and reflex optics. But here is the deal breaker. The financial reality of running this setup gets ugly quick. While the gun itself sets you back around $1,299, feeding this thing a steady diet of premium 20-gauge tungsten defense or turkey loads will drain your wallet faster than a bad habit. You are paying a steep premium for that low recoil performance. Despite the ammo cost, it is a masterclass in sub-gauge engineering that proves you do not need a bruised shoulder to defend your castle or fill your freezer. It bridges the tactical and field gap by being incredibly light, highly maneuverable, and devastatingly effective. This is solid, but wait until you see the monster at number 1. Now we get serious with number 4. The Weatherby Sorix Turkey Edition is an absolute problem solver for guys who need versatility. I saw a lefty at the range last month struggling to run a standard right ejecting gun around a barricade, practically twisting his wrist off. Weatherby fixed that permanently with their proprietary shift system. You can physically pull the charging handle and cross bolt safety out of the right side and drop them into the left side without any tools. It completely changes the manual of arms in seconds, letting you slice the pie around corners naturally. Under the hood, this Italian-made beast runs on a pure inertia recoil system. Instead of tapping dirty gas, it relies entirely on the rearward kinetic energy of the gun to compress a heavy calibrated spring inside the bolt carrier group. When that spring violently expands, it unlocks the rotary bolt head and cycles the action. That means it runs bone dry and incredibly clean. It feeds on 12 gauge, all the way up to 3.5-inch Magnum shells. When you touch off a heavy defensive load, it hits your shoulder like a swinging sledgehammer. But the hydro-dipped synthetic stock and elastomer cheek piece take the sting out. The trigger brake is sharp, shattering like a glass bottle on concrete. Looking at the profile, it wears a 24-inch barrel wrapped in Patriot brown Cerakote. That length is mathematically perfect for a crossover tool. It is short enough to clear narrow corridors in your house, but long enough to keep a tight pattern on a target at 50 yards. It comes factory drilled and tapped with 4 8x40 holes, so throwing a reflex optic on top is a breeze. The loading port is aggressively beveled to stop thumb bite during high-stress reloads, and the oversized slammer button is impossible to miss. Sound off below if you trust an inertia gun for home defense, because I know some of you gas gun purists are already typing. But let's be real, it is not flawless. Here is the deal breaker on the Sorix. The finish and the oversized controls are great, but the factory crossbolt safety is incredibly stiff right out of the box. You really have to muscle it to disengage, which is the last thing you want when you're trying to quietly neutralize a threat in the dark. It needs some serious break-in time before it runs smooth. If you can live with that. The damage to your wallet is $1,799. It is a premium price, but you are getting a highly capable ambidextrous crossover rig. Entering the elite tier with number 3, we have the 2026 edition of the Benelli M2 Field. Honestly, this is the undisputed gold standard for pure mechanical simplicity and fouling resistance. I remember a freezing morning in a flooded timber blind where every gas gun locked up tight, but the guy running an inertia-driven Benelli just kept dropping birds. This workhorse has an unassailable pedigree in both waterfowl hunting and tactical 3-gun competitions. Under the hood, you have to understand the kinematics of the Benelli inertia system. Unlike gas guns that bleed off superheated expanding gases from the barrel, this relies entirely on the kinetic energy from the rearward recoil. The whole gun recoils against your shoulder, but the bolt body stays stationary for a fraction of a millisecond, compressing a heavy calibrated spring inside the bolt carrier. When that spring violently expands, it drives the bolt rearward to unlock the rotary head and extract the spent hull. What does that mean for you? It runs exceptionally clean and cool, meaning it will not fail due to heavy carbon buildup when left in a closet for home defense. This rig eats 12 gauge or 20 gauge for breakfast, specifically chambered for 3-inch shells. Because it does not stretch to fit 3.5-inch magnums, the action is physically shorter, lighter, and cycles perceptibly faster. The trigger breaks like a frozen icicle, crisp and predictable. When you send defensive buckshot downrange, it shoves like a pissed-off linebacker. But Benelli added their progressive comfort system with interlocking synthetic leaves inside the stock. These act as dynamic shock absorbers, stretching that sharp recoil impulse over a longer duration so you can stay on target. Looking at the barrel length, you get 26 or 28 inches. That 26-inch profile gives you a great sight radius for tracking fast-moving targets, while still being able to navigate a residential structure. But here is the truth. It fails in the aesthetics and build category. The deal breaker is the finish. While it comes in various camo patterns or black synthetic, that surface coating wears off if you just look at it wrong, especially around the ejection port after heavy field use. If you want this legend in your safe, street price is $1,699. Closer to the crown, we have the Mossberg 990 SPX Magpul. Listen, this is a purpose-built tactical hybrid that completely re-engineers traditional semi-auto geometry. I have seen a lot of guys trying to adapt standard hunting rigs for home defense, but this thing does it right out of the box. It slings 12-gauge downrange with unmatched modularity and extreme reliability. Under the hood, Mossberg completely relocated the kinematics. Instead of housing the return spring in a long tube deep inside the buttstock, the entire gas operating system and spring are fully contained under the forend. Why does that matter? It pulls all that mass forward between your hands, severely mitigating muzzle flip during rapid fire sequences. Because the rear of the receiver is completely free, this gun natively accepts standard Mossberg 590 pump action stocks without any complex adapters. The standard 18.5-inch barrel holds 7+1 and weighs in at 7.75 pounds. Ripping the trigger feels like snapping a dry wishbone. When you drop the hammer on high brass buckshot, the recoil shoves like a heavy wave crashing into a pier. Mossberg coated the internal gas piston, magazine tube, and sear in nickel boron. That gives it inherent dry lubricity, meaning it cycles with frictionless smoothness, even when pushing through immense carbon fouling. For the optics crowd, the receiver features a patented optic ready cut for an RMS-C microdot, letting you co-witness with the ghost ring rear sight. In the real world, I know guys filling out NFA paperwork just to get the 14.75-inch short-barreled version for ultimate structural defense. But let's be real. Every machine has a performance quirk. The deal breaker here is that while the action eats heavy defensive loads and hunting magnums without a stutter, it gets notoriously picky with cheap 1-ounce light target loads during the first few hundred rounds. You have to break in that heavy forward return spring before it cycles the weak stuff reliably. If you can handle the break-in period, grabbing one will run you $1,309. Here we are at the top of the mountain. The Beretta AX800 Suprema takes the absolute #1 spot for 2026. It earns the crown because it gives you the optic readiness and modularity of the #2 Mossberg, but with a weatherproof construction and fouling resistance that puts the #3 Benelli to shame. When you are betting your life or your hunt on a single tool, you do not compromise. Under the hood, Beretta engineered the Stellium Pro barrel with a massive 17.7-inch elongated forcing cone. Instead of slamming the shot column into a steep wall, the kinetic physics of this elongated forcing cone create a significantly more gradual constriction from the chamber to the bore. This profoundly reduces pellet deformation, giving you mathematically tighter downrange energy and uniform pattern density. It feeds on 12-gauge. I happily cycle in everything from light target loads to brutal 3.5-inch magnums without you ever touching a gas valve. Down at a freezing coastal duck blind last season, I watched a guy drop a prototype of this exact polymer receiver straight into the salt water. He just shook it off and dumped 3 rounds without a single malfunction. Ripping the trigger snaps like stepping on a dry pine cone in the dead of winter. When you let the hammer drop, the recoil pushes like a slow rolling wave instead of a sharp jab. That is because the Kickoff Pro hydraulic dampers inside the stock absorb the rearward kinetic energy, giving you up to a 70% reduction in felt recoil. Looking at the outside, the high-tech glass fiber injected polymer receiver completely eliminates the need for external oil, so it will not freeze up in sub-zero temperatures. You get your choice of 26, 28, or 30-inch barrels, ease along with an integrated red dot saddle mount right on top of the receiver. To put this masterpiece in your safe, expect to drop $2,399. It is a heavy investment, but it is the ultimate crossover machine. The bottom line is simple. The days of buying a dedicated waterfowl gun and a separate tactical shotgun are over. SHOT Show 2026 proved that the industry is finally building weapons that adapt to the shooter and the mission, not the other way around. Whether you are taking down a gobbler in the spring or protecting your family in the dead of night, these 5 platforms deliver absolute reliability when it counts. Stop wasting your money on specialized safe queens that only do one job. Get a crossover rig, push it to the limit, and know your gear inside and out. If you want the raw truth without the fluff, lock it in right here.